Well, hello, Blake's grandpa.
Yeah, I gotta change that, huh?
I was like, well, I don't think it's gotta be Seth, even though it says that. So,
Yes, I will take. That's what I was on when we did the alumni awards.
oh, nice. Hold on a second. Let me.
There we go.
How are you?
Am I dressed okay?
You're in perfect COVID attire, right?
Yeah, and you could hear me okay, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect. How about can
Uh,
you hear me okay?
yeah, sure. Let me just see if I do this. So if I share the screen, let me just see if I do that.
I'm gonna send everybody in
Let's
the.
just see. Right, so that works. Now I
Yep,
can stop the share. Okay.
yep. I saw you fine. I'm gonna send a message to everybody that will let them in a few minutes.
Okay, how's everything going? You up there? You live up there, right?
Yeah, I live right in Oneonta. We've been pretty much working from home though since March 17th-ish, like right around St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
And then we were supposed to go back um, in August. We were starting to rotate in. So my day was Wednesdays, and I went to work one day, and then all hell broke loose, and we were all sent home again. So
Yeah, that was pretty unfortunate what happened.
it sure was. Just hope it doesn't happen again.
Well, what are they going to do in the spring semester? Still remote or?
They're working on the plan right now. We have the new acting president, Dennis Craig. I don't know if you've followed the news at all, but um,
Yeah,
he's come over from Purchase and he's been working. There's like a COVID response team, so they've been working really hard to put together a plan. Right now, the plan is to have 20% of classes actually be what they're referring to as mask to mask, not face to face.
okay.
And they will have students living on campus who want to live on campus in singles. So the
Okay.
bonus of the pandemic is they get their own room, but that's just to decrease the density. So it'll, a lot of the students who, for example, either, they're in labs like science with the labs and stuff, those are really difficult to do remotely. So those students who are taking classes in person will get priority for
Right.
living on campus, along with any students who have extraordinary circumstances like homelessness or food insecurity and stuff like that. So
And
they're
then they'll have the dining halls, I guess, one or two open or something like that.
yeah, they're gonna start out with just Willsbach open
Okay.
initially, and it'll only be open for takeout. So
Got it.
um, in fact, they sent out, there's a draft plan online, and Paul Adamo asked us all to review it and send him comments and questions. And one of the comments that I had was, I get why they're only opening one dining hall.
Yeah.
Financially, that totally makes sense. But the reality is, students don't like to leave their residence halls in the winter as it is. So if
Right.
you live in Hulbert Hall and you had,
Yeah.
your dining hall used to be right downstairs from you, um, students
Right.
don't like to walk to the Union. They'll literally take a bus from the bus stop down by
Right.
Hulbert up to the Union. So they're not going to walk back and forth to Willsbach
Well,
2 or 3 times.
why wouldn't they put students in like Hobart and just open that facility and start there?
I don't know. I know that they're, because of, I guess they have an idea of how many students are actually interested, and they also have to keep a certain number of residence halls sort of offline for that if we do need to quarantine people.
Right.
So they have a whole plan. I don't know why Willsbach. I mean, Willsbach is kind of centrally located, but I mean,
Oh, is it? Which one is it? Wilsbach all the way on the end, or is Mills all the way at the end?
Willsbach is the one all the way in the end. Then it's Mills in the middle, and then
Right. So
Hulbert, of course, is way down by
yeah, the other side of campus.
yeah.
Sure.
But
Oh, they'll do what they'll do.
which is convenient when it comes to where you live, being able to pop around. But
Well, the students have the dorms been emptied out? So like is people like students moving in? Will they move into so you could possibly put everybody in Curtis and Blodgett and Madison and
right,
just McDuff and keep them on that end of campus so they could be near Willsbach.
yeah, and hopefully that's what their plan is, because they did say that anybody who was living on campus in the fall, like it is highly unlikely that you would have the same room that you had.
Right.
You know, they're moving,
Yeah.
everybody is getting out, they're starting over from scratch. So
Right.
that may be it, that they're just going to put people close. But I was like, yeah, students don't want to walk to class or, you know, across campus. I can't see them walking to Wilsbach to get their lunch or dinner, to walk it back to their residence hall, to eat it, to,
Yeah.
you know, it's just, they're not going to do it. And
Yeah.
it's just realistic. I mean, it's lazy.
Well,
And
my guess is they're not going to put people in Holbrook. They're
I
probably not.
hope you're right. I hope you're
Yeah.
right. And they may not be.
Yeah.
That might be the answer to my concern, is that, well, it doesn't matter because they won't be that far away anyway. But
Yeah. I mean, if you put everybody from, let's say, like Ford or Grant or whatever it is and work your way around and you end up at the Sherman, so you only do it there. You know, I don't know how many students are going to be looking to come back to campus, but if you at least start there and circle around there, so it really surrounds
right.
Holbrook. I mean, if it surrounds Wilsbach, you're okay.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead. It looks like we have about 7 people waiting, so I'll go ahead and let people in.
Hope we do better than 7.
Oh, we will. They'll all come in right at 1 o'clock. Oh, I didn't set it so that everybody was muted. So if you want to mute yourself, that will be helpful. Hi, Jessica. Jessica.
How are you, Danielle?
I'm good. Jessica Sinopoli is one of our Oneonta Future Alumni Network members, and she also has worked with us on Backpacks to Briefcases, Seth, and she's also a board member.
And she's also my LinkedIn, part of my LinkedIn network.
Yep.
She's a smart cookie for sure. And I can also say this, but it'll come out in, well, can I say it, Jessica? I should say, can I tell the news?
If you want.
She'll be the 2021 Student Leadership Award winner as well.
Oh, congratulations. Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A lot of work for our office, not just for business aspect, but as a OFAN member too. So
Gonna make me blush.
that's my job, to make you uncomfortable.
She's a star, that's for sure.
Oh, see, I always forget it's you, Charlene, because your thing says Jerry.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, you know why? Because I don't have Zoom on my computer because it takes up too much bandwidth. Because I use, Blackboard and Teams. So yeah, when I sign into this, I sign into his computer. And well, now the cat's out of the bag. My husband's name is Jerry.
Oh.
Well,
Oh.
now we know. Now we know. If you have just your last name, if you could change it to your first and last, just so we can see who's here and keep track of attendance and make sure everybody's actually on the registration list. We don't have any Zoom bombers in the background.
Yes, please, students, put your last names on there so we can keep track. I can't change my husband's name because, well, I don't know how to. So
Here comes Dr. Flynn. Hello, Dr. Flynn.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
It's okay. It's 1 o'clock. It's exactly 1 o'clock. So you're technically not late. Well, I'm going to say we're going to go ahead and get started. And then I'll just be letting people in, Seth, as we get going. So thank you all for coming to the last virtual session of Backpacks Briefcases for the fall semester. I'm just going to let somebody else in here. So we have today with us Seth Crystall, who's an alumni of distinction honoree, and he is also working with Accurus, and he's got his whole presentation ready to go over with all of you, so I will not steal his thunder. And as usual, we'll have time at the end for questions. So if you have a question and it can't wait, you can pop it in the chat and I can let Seth know something's popping up for him. I would just like to once again thank Drs. Flynn and Foley-Deno for helping us with this and getting the word out to the students and helping us promote Backpacks Briefcases. And especially, they did a lot of work before we had to shift to virtual to try to do this in person, and they do a lot of work every year. So I'll give an extraordinary thank you and applause to them for all that they've done. And also to Jessica Sinopoli, who has helped us on the student aspect of this. And she's also, even though she's graduating, she's already helped us with what's to come next year. So shout out to her as well. So I want to go ahead and turn this over to you, Seth, and I'll let you take it away. If you have any trouble with, it looks like screen sharing will be fine, but if you have any trouble, I'm here.
Okay, well, thanks, Danielle, for the introduction. And gosh, this is somewhat different than I'm used to, working on Zoom instead of having students in a conference room and doing a presentation live, although I guess this is live. So it'll be a little bit more difficult for me to do this, but I think we'll work through it. Hopefully we'll get some more students to join in, but I appreciate those who are here today. Hopefully you'll get something out of it that'll be meaningful. So I'll just dive right in. I do have a presentation. I think Danielle sent it to everybody, so you can look at it at some point. I'll pop it up on the screen and go through it. I also have notes, so I'll be looking, down at notes just because I don't remember everything I want to say. Usually I want to keep this informal. I have a formal presentation, but I want to keep it somewhat informal. So if you do have questions, feel free to shout them out. But as Danielle said at the end of the presentation, we'll have a more formal Q&A session. What I usually do when I do the backpacks is I ask students a few questions. So I don't have everybody on video, so I can't actually do it today, but just want to give you a flavor of what I ask, because I always wanted to know who selected me to come to backpacks, because backpacks is usually one day in New York. There's a lot of presentations, and I always want to know who wanted to see me versus who got stuck with me. And the answer to that usually was, I always felt that if you got stuck with me, you at least had 1 hour that you were going to go back to campus with, and felt that that was really a worthwhile hour. So today we'll probably do about half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever the time allows. And I hope that you'll find it extremely useful for you. I also like to find out to the students, and again, this is not super important, but just to give you some flavor of what I do, is ask the students how many of those selected Oneonta as their number one choice to go to college, or how many was their safety school. So I always like to know that, because I wanted to know who I was speaking to, because I think if you didn't select Oneonta, you're very fortunate to be there now. And if you did, you made a wise choice. And then I also lastly want to just let everybody find out what they thought their starting salary would be when they graduate college. And I could tell you the range went from $25,000 a year up to $100,000. And I can confidently tell everybody that it will be in that range. So I'm going to share my screen now. And again, hopefully you can see it. And if not, well, there's my daughters and my grandchild. That's not going to work. So let's do this. And there's my screen. Okay. So this is the COVID-19 edition of the Backpacks to Briefcases. So not what we expected, but we'll persevere. Usually what I'd like to do is start out with some goals of what I want to talk about. So, and I'll couch this a little bit. It's a better understanding of career opportunities, usually in finance, because for the last 35 years, I've worked in finance. So, for those of you who are in, business economics major, thinking of finance, good for you. But if not, don't be discouraged, because I think that my presentation and what I'm going to talk about will also identify skills that will make you more marketable in the workplace. So if you're be going on interviews, I think we could talk about things like that. Also importantly, and usually I always feel I'm better speaking to underclassmen, is appreciate the opportunities that you get from Oneonta and what's provided to students. Oftentimes, don't appreciate it, and we'll talk about that. And then networking, obviously, just being on today gives me an idea of how important you feel networking is, and it is. And mentoring in school and networking really go hand in hand. One overriding thing that'll continue to come up, and I'll say over and over again, I think that we had a student named Unique Jones going to be online. I don't know if she is, so I wanted to apologize to her in advance, is I probably will use the word unique at least a dozen times, because everybody on the call, every student is unique. You have your own personality, your own set of experiences, your own skill set. There's nobody like you. No matter what anybody might say, there is nobody like you. You are unique. Always remember that. And then just finally is just, I don't have all the answers. No alumni, no professor, not your parent, although they may think they do, they don't have all the answers. So you have to always remember that and take that into consideration, that we just don't know everything. So we do the best we can with what information we have, and I do the same. So my agenda, which I'll streamline a little bit today, is I just give you a quick background about myself so you know who I am. I'm going to talk about Oneana versus the world, and I'll explain what that means, things to consider, and some thoughts on success. So we'll cover those things. I also like quotes. If you look at the presentation, the last 3 or 4 pages are all quotes. I like quotes. I like using quotes. So I sprinkle them in here. So just to start off, if you're not on the right track, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And that really talks about really having a plan and executing a plan. Having a plan is not enough. You need to execute it. You have to make it actionable. And so that's something you'll find throughout the rest of your life if you haven't already found it out. And maybe most importantly, a bad attitude is like a flat tire. It won't get you anywhere until you change it. That is probably very self-explanatory. You probably don't need me to explain, but a bad attitude shines, a light, people can see it, and it's not a good thing. So change it, because that's going to really dictate your success in the future. So who am I? Okay, well, I grew up in Brooklyn, in a housing project in Brooklyn. So if you don't understand what I say, it's because I speak a dialect. It's called Brooklynese. And I've never been able to get rid of it. So I apologize up front if you can't understand some of what I say, but hopefully you'll be able to follow me. As Danielle said, I graduated in 1980, so I'm a relic, but hopefully a relic who's still with it to some extent. And then I went back to NYU to grad school to get my MBA in finance after a number of years. And students have asked me why I spend most of my time, with Oneanta and not NYU, because I spend no time with them. And maybe by the time we're done with the presentation, you'll get a sense of why that's the case. So as you can see, I've spent 40 years on Wall Street, starting off at different jobs in operations, and working my up to find out what I really want to do as an analyst. Went back to school, and I've been an analyst, a financial analyst, for over 30 years. A few more quotes just to kind of give you a sense of who I am, because I'm not the kind of guy, if anybody out there wants to talk to me and says, I want to make $1 million a year, you got the wrong guy. I could probably help you out and explain opportunities, but that's not who I am. I like to look at my life as being more meaningful, not just my career. And so Maya Angelou, I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, everybody knows the quote there, so I don't need to read it. But what also I think is really important and something to balance your life is to take charge. So the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And I think that's really important that you need to realize is that you have control over a lot of what goes on. And so the sooner you take control and prioritize that, the better off you'll be, because somebody else may have, if you don't have plans, somebody else will tell you what they want you to do. And that may not be what you want to do. So I'm going to skip through my ion accuracy debt wire where I work. You can always come back to that if anybody has questions. But let's start with, I think, what's most important. Oneana versus the world. And I'm going to start off with another quote by John Wooden, who most of you don't know, but that's okay. You are no better than anyone else, and no one is better than you. And I think what that basically means is you should respect everyone. Everybody should respect each other, but you should also be humble. If you are better and more gifted in certain ways, don't rub it in other people's faces, because everybody is unique. They have their own sets of skills. So it's important to realize that. So Oneana versus the world. Why did I choose that as the title? Well, I'm going to start off with my younger daughter's old boyfriend, Stephen, whose name I'll use as Stephen because that's his name. He went to Drexel. And Drexel has a really good business program where they you have to go on internships in addition to classwork. And so they set that up for you. And Stephen, I guess it was his junior year, was moping around my house one day, and I just said, what's the matter? And he was complaining that he had just come back from a Bank of America had not a career day, but it was really when they were bringing students into intern to select who they were going to have for the internships. And he was telling me that there were students there from Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Virginia and Columbia and NYU and Duke. And here was Stephen from Drexel. And he said, how do I compete with these students? How can I separate myself from them because they're all distinguished? And I said, gosh, that doesn't sound like a problem at all. You're in the room. You're getting interviewed. They've chosen you to be part of potentially their class of interns. What's the problem? You know, if anybody's seen Hamilton, if you haven't, it's a great show, but there's one scene in the song, you know, the room where it happens. And that's where you want to be. You want to be interviewed. You want to get in that room. And hopefully today, some of the things I'll talk about will give you some help in getting you in that room, because you are unique. Said it again. So, Oneonta versus the world. Do you want to have a chip on your shoulder your whole life that you're not as good as other people who went to other schools, maybe more prestigious sounding schools? Sure, but don't let that chip weigh you down. Use that chip to motivate you. Because what's Oneonta give you? I mean, it's a small liberal arts school in upstate New York, the middle of nowhere, but really the middle of everywhere. It's a great place. If you've been up there, if you're a junior or senior, and you've spent time in Oneonta, hopefully over the last few years, you know what Oneonta has to offer. Beautiful town, great place to live, you know, just some place that I think most people should maybe not live your whole life, but for college, a great experience. But you also have professors, you know, and people would say, well, they're not Harvard professors. I wouldn't want a Harvard professor, because you have professors who care about you. They understand where they are in Oneonta. They're not just maybe looking to climb the ladder to become very well known, or they have to write dissertations and publish. Oneonta professors do that too. But you have professors who are there to mentor you. They're there to help you out and to help you network. They're there to teach you. And so I think, and one of the things I didn't do well is I didn't really use the professors when I was in school as really resources, which they are. And I think that's something you should realize, that you have things. But the other thing that I think coming with Oneonta is the entire package. There's a lot of things to get involved in and with on the campus. Now, obviously, with COVID, has changed the world. It's upside down. And so some of the things I'll talk about, you'd say, well, but how can I get involved when campus isn't open? And as clubs are maybe not doing things that they normally do, or organizations, Greek life is not the same. I hear you, I feel your pain. You know, it's something I can't help. Things for, you know, if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, hopefully by next year, they're going to be going back to normal, whatever normal might be. But it doesn't really give you an excuse not to get involved. You still can do it. You still can reach out to professors. You can still reach out to resources you have on campus. As I say, and as Stephen felt this chip on his shoulder, that, you know, where is this, my liberal arts degree going to compete against all these big shot schools? What I would say is let that motivate you to work harder, to be better. A lot of, you know, Harvard or Ivy League students, they were born into that. They may not even be hardworking. They may be legacies. So you can make choices to really excel. You know, obviously, if it comes down to somebody from Harvard and somebody from Oneonta, you'd have to really blow somebody away to get the job. But the fact is, you can get the job if you're in that room. So what I have on this slide is another quote by Regina Brett, and just says, choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And I don't need to read the whole thing. You can read it, but you are unique. You have talents. You have ideas and interests. You have a skill set. You could become whatever you want to become. So anyone on the call who thinks that Oneonta does not really prepare students for the next step in their life is really only going to blame themselves, because you don't have to make excuses. You have the ability, and you're given a lot of resources to really excel. And I think that's important. When I was up at Oneonta a few years ago, talking to a class of accounting majors, they're in their 5th year, and I asked them, how many of you feel you're prepared to, excel, and you've been prepared to really excel in what you want to be? And I can't even tell you if half the class raised their hand. And to me, that was really eye-opening and very unfortunate, because I don't think they realize, what really they've been given and what opportunities, they have before them if they only take advantage of it. So how do you get in the room where it happens? Oneonta versus the world, how do you get that chip off your shoulder? Well, some things that you might consider, and they're practical things, nothing really earth-shattering. Mission statement. Who are you? what do you want to do? Again, you are unique. You know, all corporations, all organizations, they all have mission statements. They're like a compass. They give you a guide to reaching a goal. And it's constantly changing. It's not something you just write down and put it away and that's it. Because you change as a person. And so your goals are going to change and how you achieve them is going to change. But a mission statement would really be, I think, a helpful thing to have to at least get you going, to give you some direction. Now, again, somebody might ask me, did I write a mission statement? So I'll be honest. No, I have not. And it's an excuse and it's terrible. But I think what I would say happened to somebody who's older, who still probably could still have a mission statement, is I think John Lennon said it best when he says, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. So things happen, we understand. But I think as students who really want to try to figure out where they want to go, what road they want to travel, hey, the journey is great, but if you have some idea where you're going, it's all that much better. So a mission statement to me would be something to work on. I have good news for good students and bad news for those who aren't. Courses and grades do matter. Sorry to tell you, or happy to tell you, but they're not the only thing that matters. And again, I touched on it before, what Oneonta offers you, but leadership positions, internships, you know, jobs you've had, but even clubs and Greek life, community service. There's a lot of other things you can do to build out your resume. And they're all important. Don't let anybody kid you. But that being the case, if you're like a C student, you know, and you can't find, you know, jobs that you really want to excel in, you know, you've got to have some really extraordinary other things on there to overcompensate for that. So again, what students should be looking to do, and the younger you are, the better, because you have more opportunity, is to find opportunities where you can build out your resume in a meaningful way, such as joining clubs on campus, you know, looking for internships, getting, you know, even within the clubs on campus, leadership positions, not just being a member, but being the president, the vice president, the treasurer, the secretary, because it shows leadership. It shows that you drove for something, and that really stands out on a resume. Career Development Center. I'm sorry to, I don't want to guess how few of you have actually ever been there, but it's a resource. You know, they help you with internships. They help you with resume writing. I implore everybody to at least, well, when you get back on campus, unfortunately, to find it, visit it, and at least give it a shot. It may not be for you, but it's at least a resource that's there. Mentoring and networking. Well, I've already talked about your professors. They're there. You know, some of them may not care. Not everybody is going to be good at what they do, but many of them will. They're reachable. They're willing to help. You'll find a connection. You could talk to them about not only subjects and classes you're taking, but about careers and ideas along that line. Networking also involves B2B, as you're doing now, alumni. If you're not sure what you might want to do with your life, if you're a marketing major and you're just not sure if that's for you, reach out to the Alumni Association. They are in touch with alumni who are in those fields, and they'll hook you up to have a conversation with somebody who could maybe help give you direction. Again, somebody who's willing to help out, they can hook you up. And so take advantage of it. It's there for you. And if you didn't know about it, you know about it now. So it's very important. And the Alumni Association, you should keep in touch because it's always going to be something you're going to want to come back to. They do a great job. They do, you know, they connect people, they run programs. So I think it's really important. One thing, just dropping back to mentoring and networking, which I want to say, and again, these are for more of the freshmen, sophomore, juniors on the call, not necessarily the seniors anymore. But when alumni come to campus to do presentations, you might read about it or hear about it and just say, yeah, I'm not really interested. You know what you should do? Put it on your calendar and make sure you go. If alumni is giving up their time to travel up to Oneonta to do a presentation for students, you should want to go. You never know when just one pearl of wisdom will be spoken that might change your life. And so think about this. If and when in the future you have time and you're aware that alumni is coming up, even if it's not in a field you're really interested in, because you just never know what might happen. I'm always asked about books. And so I always recommend 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's something you can read over the Christmas break, the holiday, you know, the holiday recess. It's easy reading. And I think there's some things in there that will really make you open your eyes. So I think that's important. Resumes are important. And what I offer all the students who I see, and even today, if you need help, reach out to me. My email's on the front page of the presentation, so I don't have to tell it to you. You send me an email in the subject area, just let me know who you are, just B2B, Oneonta, just something so I know who you are. More times than none, I'll get back to you within a couple hours. If not, I'm on vacation, but I'll get back to you. Resumes are important. I've seen some really terrible ones, and I've seen some great ones. But in either case, any resume can turn into a good one if you know what you're doing. I like to give an example of resumes and why resumes got to be your work. Ask a lot of people, get a lot of suggestions. That's important, but it's got to represent who you are. My daughter's a teacher, and she went to school in Towson in Baltimore. She got a job out of school, and that was great. She wanted to finally come back up to the New York area, and her old resume had like her sorority on it, Kappa Delta. And when she was coming to New York, we asked, and she reached out to other teachers in the profession and said, take that out. That doesn't matter. You've already taught. Nobody cares. You know, fortunately for her, her first resume was the one she originally sent out before she changed it. And when she went for her first job interview, the person who met her said, hey, we're sisters. And it was, you know, she couldn't believe it because she had changed her resume, taking it off, quickly put it back on because obviously it resonated with somebody who all of a sudden accepted her, knowing that she was somebody who was involved in a sorority and they knew what that was. It was a great connection, a great interview, and she got the job. Not that that did it, but it helps. The point is you need to put in what you think is important. Don't let anybody else tell you, take it out if you really think it's important. Interviewing, honesty is the only policy. Well, honesty is the only policy. You know, it's the best policy, the only policy. You should only do it because why lie? You always get caught in a lie. You know, my daughter, you know, my younger daughter, you know, when she was in school, I had forced her. I didn't force her to do anything. I guess that's not fair, but I strongly advised her to take classes in African-American studies, just so she would have a whole understanding of a culture. And during that course, there was a section on jazz, and she liked it so much, she took a jazz class and learned about the history of jazz and stuff. And we had to go to a concert, and, you know, we went with her, and it was good. When interviewing, somebody interviewed her and said, what was your favorite course? And she said jazz. And they kind of looked at her like, what? And the person loved jazz. And they spent 15, 20 minutes talking about jazz, which if you go on an interview, you should realize the more you could talk about other things other than going down a chronological list of your life and things like that is a real win-win. So again, you put in the interview, you don't lie. I know people have lied. We've sat with people and they said, oh, I love to do this. And I've asked them questions and then they said, well, I really don't. You know, you don't. A few more quotes here, just about really working hard. I mean, I think there's nobody who should work harder than you. Don't ever make an excuse. And Stephen Covey, again, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Before I go on, does anybody have a question? You know, I don't know if you have anything, Danielle, before I go on. I mean, I know I ramble sometimes.
No, I think you're on a good track. I'm sure there will be questions at the end, but I'll let, if the students have anything, they can chime in now before you go further.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so when I do this, the next thing students always have asked me and I've learned is, well, how about some practical things to tell me? What can I do? Again, for you seniors who are graduating in December or next May, I don't think I could really help you much unless you could still register for something you haven't taken that maybe I can convince you might be worthwhile. But don't waste your credits. What you should do is broaden your knowledge base, strengthen your weaknesses. You're already paying a lot of money for tuition. Make your investment count. You know, if anybody's involved in business, economics, finance, you understand getting a return on your money. Why would you waste it and take something that's not going to do anything to you other than maybe get you an easy A to boost your GPA, but doesn't provide any other benefit to you? So I list a bunch of subjects, but I've highlighted a few which I'll go over. Yesterday, I was talking to a student who's graduating in May, and he was signing up and he said, what do you think? Do you think I should take corporate finance? I said, absolutely, you take corporate finance. So it's a course, if you want to go into finance, you should have. If you think you want to invest money, investment management, portfolio management, fine. I mean, you know, I don't love it. One thing I found out from a lot of students is they know how to use Excel, but they're not really good at it. So I believe you have a course there, maybe more basic introductory. You could find other kinds of Excel kind of classes, maybe in a community college you could do over a summer or something. If you think you want to go into finance or any job that will involve spreadsheets, any kinds of analysis, spend a little time and get better at Excel. It just will go a long way. But as I started off telling you, my whole life has not just been about a career, it's been about other things. So I think you need to broaden what your knowledge and strengths and weaknesses. What's two of the weaknesses that I find most students really have and really hate doing? They hate public speaking and they hate writing. And gosh, if you're going to be successful in business, in the business world, those are two things I think you really need to have. So maybe with your, a lot of your majors, they force you to take a Comp 100 class. I'd say take Comp 200. If you really want to do public speaking, another great course, because if you want to succeed, if you want to get into management somewhere in any job you take, you're going to have to be able to write. You're going to have to be able to speak. So again, something to take. You may not like it. It may be, like pulling teeth, but you know what? You do it. I've talked about acting, and somebody asked me once, why acting? I mean, what's that do for me? The whole world is a stage. I mean, we all act. Why not learn a skill that you could probably utilize in an interview, maybe, or you can utilize in jobs. But acting lets you see things from a different perspective. So it just opens your eyes to different things and how to handle roles you may not have had to handle in the past. So acting, it's just a theater course that probably is underappreciated and maybe should be a requirement for a lot of people. And then I threw in a couple of others in psychology or sociology, because a hotbed on our globe is the Middle East. And, President Trump used it when he got elected about Muslims, but it's the sociology of Islam. Why not, if you can, understand other people and what drives them and what they're all about? Or the Black Lives Movement has been just such a predominant theme in our country this year. Many people who go to Oneonta come from upstate New York, or maybe from suburbs, and they don't get to interact with people from, minority backgrounds. In college, maybe their first real experience doing it. Why not take a class to learn a little bit about what's really going on? It may be force feeding you, but again, opening your eyes to other things that you may not have experienced. And the other thing I always throw out there that you should look at, if it's not in your major, you may be able to take some of these classes pass fail. So you don't sweat over midterms and finals. You may just have to get like a C, to pass. And so it takes a little bit of the pressure off, but you really broaden your knowledge base, maybe strengthen some weaknesses. Again, taking your tuition dollars and just getting a better return on investment. So again, I don't see why somebody should shy away from it. It's easy to take other things that are really easy A's, really simple classes. But again, if you want to come out of college with a broad background where you could sit down and talk to people about all kinds of topics, of the day, why not spend it in a class and learning something? So just kind of to wrap up what we've kind of talked about, or I guess what I've talked about, is positive attitude. There's nothing like it. Managers, other, colleagues could smell a bad attitude a mile away. It's not what you want to have. If you don't fix it, you're going to have a problem. One other quote, that I like from John Wooden, things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. And that's just the way life is. We're all going to be thrown a curve. This pandemic has thrown everybody a curve. How you dealt with it and how you're dealing with it says a lot about you. It says a lot about who you could become. It's not easy. Nobody could say, oh yeah, I've done this before. No, they haven't, unless they're 100 years old. They haven't done it before. It's a whole new thing. And, making the best out of it and having a positive attitude when maybe we don't have the right to have a positive attitude. So that's important. Professionalism. When you go for a job, or if you're working on internships, look and act successful. Wear the proper clothing. Carry yourself in a manner to make yourself feel good, but also, think about the school you're representing. Because what happens in a workplace is that if you go in, you're an Oneonta student or grad, and you really impress them, that raises the profile of any other Oneonta student who in the future wants to, go there and be involved. So everybody thinks that there's times when your managers aren't looking and they're not watching you. You're always being watched. Just think about it. There may be cameras, there may be software technology that shows what you're working on. Don't be anything but professional in a work environment. Good communication and interpersonal skills. Well, I don't really have great interpersonal skills or good communication skills, but I've gotten by. Asking questions is really important. It's not a sign of weakness. When you're given an assignment, maybe your first assignment in any kind of job, you need to make sure you know what you're doing, because your manager may tell you to do something, and you may spend the next 2 hours doing it and really proud of yourself, when it should have only taken you 15 minutes because you went way, way beyond what was expected and what they wanted, because they didn't want you wasting 2 hours. Asking questions, it's not a sign of weakness. Never think it. Anybody who tells you you should know that answer already is really not working for you, and it's probably not somebody you want to deal with. Strong work ethic, again, just coming in on time, staying a little later. I told somebody that, and students said, well, how early should I come in and how late should I stay? And I said, well, I can't answer the question, but if you're working on a typical 9 to 5 job, maybe you come at 8:45, 8:30, and maybe you leave at 5:15, 5:30. Again, just to get things done. Sometimes you're done with your work and you leave. I mean, that's okay. Sometimes you get, but I've worked with people who've come in late, consistently late, and everybody notices it. Everybody, or some people always jump out early. It's everybody notices it. So you want to have a strong work ethic. You want to have a passion for what you want to do, and you want to have do it the right way. Integrity and accountability, again, this goes with the territory. You are accountable for certain responsibilities of your job. You want to, have integrity in what you're doing. It's simple. It's just being a professional. They all go hand in hand. Everybody, the key words of being results oriented and problem solver probably is overused, but probably important. Being smart, being book smart is one thing, but being able to identify a problem, tear it apart, and figure out solutions goes a long way. That's who you want to be when you can be that person. So again, thinking sometimes outside the box, not just what's linear, but sometimes thinking outside that. How do I solve this problem? What are ways to do that? Working with other people, communication skills, interpersonal skills, they all come hand in hand. Being open-minded, being flexible. As I said at the start, I don't have all the answers. Anybody who tells you they got all the answers is probably called mom or dad. And the answer is they don't have all the answers either. So you need to be flexible. You need to be open-minded. You need to realize that there are other people in the world who have thoughts and ideas that may be different than yours. But in a sense, something you might, if you stop and listen and hear what they say and listen to what they say, have a whole new understanding of life. So you be understanding, open-minded, flexible. And then again, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, gosh, you guys are young. Well, maybe except for the professors on the call, but all the students are basically young. Gosh, you're going to fail in life. I mean, the point is you get up and dust yourself off and get moving again. You have to take risks. They got to be calculated risks. You can't be, have a family of 4 and be the sole, breadwinner and quit your job to, join a rock and roll band. I mean, you can't be foolish, but they're calculated risks one should take. And so, I think that's something that's important and something that shouldn't be underestimated and overstated. So that's kind of, I've gone through a lot in a short period of time. I'll leave it open for Q&A. Just, one last thing I'll say, only because it really opened my eyes when I was up in Oneonta, more recently, and asked students about how they felt they were being prepared for school. And I was very disappointed to hear that they didn't think they were prepared. And I just think that they weren't really being fair and honest with themselves. Is that if you don't think you're getting your money's worth, open your mouth and say something to somebody. Have a discussion with a professor, maybe, somebody who you trust. You're a paying customer. And so you can't change the world maybe, but maybe you could change the direction of certain things and make other people understand that certain things are not filling what your expectations were of college. So don't be ashamed of that and don't be shy. I mean, again, I wouldn't go picketing, the administration building or the president's office because you're not happy about something, but you can open your mouth. You can be an agent of change. So remember that in everything you do. So I'm going to now stop sharing my screen and open it up to some questions if you have any.
If you have questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. And if you would like, you can also put them in the chat and I can ask them.
I'll start off. I'm interested in hearing your perspective about this. So individuals my age and maybe individuals a little older, they, to put it less eloquently, job hop a lot. And we go from job to job. As someone who has a lot of experience in the field, your previous employer you were at for about 13 years, how did you know it was time to leave?
Okay, so I'll answer that in two answers. So yes, you're right. Younger generation, when I started out, a long time ago, we had loyalty to where we worked. We thought our employer was going to take care of us for life. And that's what my parents' generation, everybody always thought. But your generation, not so much. And I can get my daughter down here and tell you how many jobs she switched in the last few years. And, she's done a very good job doing it. So she's been smart how she's moved about. For me, I think what happens sometimes when you're in a job, you get on, you're there too long and you realize it. So if you go back and look at the chronology, my first job, I was only at 9 months. I knew I didn't want to do what I was doing after 9 months, and everybody told me I couldn't move. If any move I made would have been laterally. And I said, I'm not wasting my time moving laterally because that's not what I want. I'm not looking just for a little bit more money. I want a whole new direction. So it took a little longer than I would have thought. But again, as I said, I was only there 9 months and I knew. And if you look then after that, most places I've been at, it's like 10 years, 5 years, 13 years. So how do you know? When you see the organization where your manager's changing, and I don't mean physically new managers, but actually you see the direction that the organization is going in, what they appreciate, what they, not their expectations, but what they are willing to pay for, what they think is important. And that doesn't mesh with what you think is important. If you think they're going off track. And so, yeah, that's what happened in my last job. It was just, things had changed, the market had changed. What with the job we were doing changed. And so it just was not fun. I mean, I like to have fun at work. I mean, this is killing me being at home. I mean, I love being at home, but, I like to be in the workplace. I socialize, I talk to people. I know what's going on. I knew everybody at the company. To me, it's got to be fun. Every day it had to be fun. If it wasn't fun, I didn't want to be there. So, but you'll know. I think it's a hard question to answer, but I think when it happens, you'll know. It's almost like meeting the person for you, whoever that is. Sometimes when it happens, you just know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, come on.
I have a question. I kind of made a quick note in the chat, but you mentioned that it kind of came to me when you were talking about the important classes that we should be looking at.
Yep.
And I've always been interested in environmental classes and things like that nature.
Yep.
And I really think that that has had in the past like 10 years has had a big effect on financially on companies. And I'm just wondering, like, do you see that happening in the future, like with like more incentives and more like taxes on companies and producers that pollute and stuff like that? You see that having a impact? Do you think it's maybe important to take a few of those classes too, or? So,
in terms of let's say like climate change and green, I don't know what kind of classes the school offers. I can't comment. They may be all in the science, and you may need prerequisites to take them. So I'm not sure. I think I try in some of the courses I laid out. You don't need a lot of prerequisites because if you're a certain major, to take things that maybe could benefit you, which are outside your major. You don't want to start having to take all those, all these classes that, start adding up when you could just minor in it at that point. So I'm not sure what coursework you'd have to take, but I think you're correct. I think that it's a big wave. It's well underway. I think investing, just in finance is big, but obviously companies that operate, their carbon footprint is going to have to come down, and it has. So I think you're correct in that assessment. I don't know what the school, and so I apologize. I just don't know what they offer. But if you had courses you could take that you thought were beneficial, by all means. I mean, there should be nothing. I mean, again, if you wanted to, if you really saw yourself going to flea markets and selling baskets and you want to take basket weaving, by all means, take it. I mean, if you have a good reason to take stuff, then that's fine. It's just a question of what will be beneficial to you. I just know when I went to school, and over the years, I've spoken with students who just kind of, it's easy. It's an easy A. It's an easy class. I don't have to show up. I mean, I just think that when you're spending the money what college costs, you might as well at least do things that can help you in other ways. And it's too much money to just waste your time. I mean, your parents may not don't care, or whoever's paying the bill may not care, but you should care.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? So I wish I could think of some other things that students would add.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. Is there something you had wished you did prior to leaving Oneonta that you recommend us all doing prior to graduating?
Okay, well, how much time do I have? Gosh. So what I would say is a lot of what I preach, I didn't practice as a student. It was really afterwards that I realized. So just for instance, I had some really great professors. I mean, they were phenomenal. They made me work, and that was what I liked about it. It wasn't an easy A. I took economics as a micro, and they said, take her and not him. And I said, well, I'd rather take him. I'm going to work and bust my butt and learn something. So it didn't matter if I didn't get the A, but it was more important what I was going to learn. But the other thing is I grew up thinking that if you befriended professors, you were kind of like what they call brown nose. You were kind of like, looking for some favor down the road, maybe in grading. And, and I knew students who did that. They really knew the answers. They were good students, but they wanted the relationship to kind of help their grade. But there were other students who definitely made, my friends, and Danielle knows, my friends are very successful. I mean, they really are. And they took communications really classes, and they knew, Dr. Doria and just all these other professors. They knew them. They went to their houses. They went to dinner. I mean, that was just phenomenal relationships they built. They were lifelong friends that they built. Now, not all your professors are going to be that way, but it's something I should have done along the way. Would have been more helpful, I think, afterwards, because when I wanted to go to grad school 6 years after I graduated, I had to now get a professor's recommendation. It made it a little tougher because, I did go back to a professor I had a sort of relationship with, but not a great one. But, again, he remembered who I was, knew I wanted to go to NYU. And so he knew I was capable of doing it. So I was able to get that. So I think that I didn't do. I also, I was an RA on campus for 2 years. So all my friends were in student government. So I couldn't, my dorm director wouldn't let me be in student government. So I was able to do certain things, but not really be involved in student government. I think that's a great organization, really helpful for a lot of disciplines when you go out. So if you're younger, again, if you're senior leaving, can't help you. But if you're, sophomore or junior, perfectly something to do. Again, somebody should think about what they want to do. If you're thinking, again, I speak from finance, but it really could be anything. It could be, English, it could be dietitian, it could be anything. If you think you want to go into finance, why not join an organization and become their treasurer? Or why not join the student government and join the finance committee? I mean, just things that are going to help you understand money and budgeting. So when you put that on your resume, that's experience you've had that really will help you. So there were certain things I couldn't do, but a lot of the things that I talked about, I didn't really belong to clubs. And again, afterwards in meeting students and hearing about their experiences, I realized that's probably something I should have done. So unfortunately, there's a lot of things that probably I tout, and I realized the real benefits of it afterwards. I don't regret that I didn't do it because I had great 4 years. I did do certain things that, I tell other people to do, but I think a lot of, like community service. didn't get involved with a lot of community service up in Oneonta. But, after that, since, I've had kids and stuff, my community services, I've done a lot of it. And organizations I worked in, I've been the co-chair of my company working on community service projects. I just know how important they are. And one, I, pull my hair out whenever I speak to students, I help them with their resumes and things like that, is I can't get students to do community service. Even if you go home, you could do it. I mean, you could do it in the summer, you could do it in the winter break. There's always time to do it. Find something through your church, through a religious, your temple, your synagogue, through other organizations. Gosh, if anybody had a parent or a relative who had cancer or suffers from some ailment, it should be something that's close to your heart. Find out how you can help out. I mean, people are just looking for, things. And right now, more so, if you put on the news, you see that they call, food insecurity. I mean, people are hungry. I mean, you call it what you want. Food banks, finding ways to get people to donate food, or, a lot more homeless people don't have the means of coats and donating coats. I mean, simple things that you could find organizations who would love to have you help out. So I don't know, it's a long answer to your question, but
Thank you for that.
yeah. And again, anybody who's on the call and, is more than welcome to reach out, can have more conversations. I'll help you with your resume if it needs any help. But I'd be more than glad to look at it, offer suggestions. And everybody, I mean, gosh, for I don't know how many years already, everybody who I deal with, we talk on the phone. We have like a half an hour conversation just so I know who you are before I help you with your resume. So with that discussion, we talk about other things, opportunities. And some people I've kept in touch with over the years and some disappear, and that's fine. I'm thick-skinned. Any other questions? Anything else? Nope.
A few more minutes if there's any other questions. Don't be shy.
Ask another question. So as someone like in the finance industry, seeing new entrants come and go, what do you think is something these days that the typical entrants lacks?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll answer that, but let me tell you first. Let me handle this a different way because I didn't touch on this and I realize it now. One of the real, I think, unfortunate consequences of students today is the pressure to know what you want to do when you graduate. You graduate high school, you're picking colleges based on what you want to do with your life. I mean, gosh, you're 18 years old. How do you know what you want to do with your life? Then when you're getting ready to graduate college, you have to know what you want to do. And the truth is, you don't have to know. And you shouldn't be pressured into having to know what you want to do. What I always tell students, and again, so I'm glad you reminded me, Jessica, is it's easier to decide and know what you don't want to do. So you can eliminate those opportunities, if we call them that. For instance, if you know you really don't like selling, because don't take a job where you're gonna have to sell. I mean, please don't even waste your time. And I meet a lot of students because insurance companies will be after you all day long, right? I mean, they'll just do that. They'll come after you all the time. Even brokerage firms will, sign up a lot of people early on to do cold calling. But if you're not really the person who has that, if you don't have that personality to really engage with people and sell, don't do it. It's simple. If you're not an analytical type person, don't go to be an analyst. Don't go into finance. I just don't. So I think if you can figure out what you don't like to do and can write that down, you're way better off and you're ahead of the game. I think when I graduated school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. None. And a lot of my friends didn't. We just knew we were hardworking and we knew we'd find our way, and we did. Today, it's not always that easy. You have to have some direction. So, what are the things that students, as I said, excel, because I'm in finance. I find that a lot of students don't have that kind of skill. So I think that's a problem. But like what else? I mean, my daughter works in advertising, and she'll say there's a lot of students, a lot of new people who join the team who don't have time management skills. They don't know how to really figure out their time, how long something takes. They sometimes wait too long, they procrastinate. So I think time management is also something that students have issues with when they join the workforce. Again, my finance bias, it's Excel, because I see that. Writing, again, that's why I say if you're not strong at it, do it. Take that class. If you're going to graduate and you haven't done it, go to community college and take it. I mean, it's a cheaper alternative, but if you're already at Oneonta and you still have another semester or another year or two to go, take it. I mean, you're paying for it, might as well take it. I think communication skills are always something that seems to be lacking, not knowing. But I don't know if that's part of a skill set. A lot of that is easily learnable, so it's not a real fault. Yeah, I don't know if that helps, if that answers, because I don't like to box everybody and say, everybody's like this. I've had a couple of Oneonta students work with me who I liked from meeting them, and we were able to bring them on our team when it was an opening, and they did phenomenally well. So, moved on to bigger and better things, making a lot more money than me, and good for them. And I'm happy for them. But, what they're lacking is, within finance, I can easily identify it. Other things, time management, writing skills, definitely, just interpersonal kind of things that need to be bolstered a little bit. Time management is usually the bigger one, though.
Thank you.
Okay, so somebody asked a question. I'm looking on the chat. After school, what was a notable fail you experienced, and how did you pick yourself up afterwards? Okay, how did I fail? Oh, come on, I didn't fail. No, how did I fail? It's a good question, kind of tricky question, because it's like in an interview when somebody asks you that question. What was a big thing you had to overcome, and or what's your biggest weakness? And everybody says, "Well, I work too hard." Well, come on, that's not a weakness. Come on. What did I fail at? Early on in my career, and I don't know if it was really a fail, but I think it was a good lesson I learned, is I worked in the back office. And so we dealt with investors who had certain demands from us. And one of them I misunderstood. I didn't understand exactly what I was supposed to do, and I didn't ask the question. And that's why I say you got to ask questions. And I kind of hit it. And then unfortunately, the proverbial shit hit the fan. And I was pulled inside and said, "Why did you do this? This is not right." The client's really angry. And the lesson, so did I fail? I don't know if I failed, but what I learned is ask questions. Or if you make a mistake, own up to it quickly. Now, so this happened pretty quickly. My direct manager realized I made a mistake like a day or two later, and we were able to correct it before it became a much bigger problem and, potentially lose one of our clients. But, telling me, "Hey, we're on the same team. We're all going to make mistakes, but don't bury them." Don't know you made a mistake and then just go on to the next task without letting somebody know, because, we all work together. And if we don't know there's a problem, we can't handle it and solve it. And so I think that was probably more eye-opening for me, because I was scared that I didn't, handle it the right way. And I didn't want to tell anybody. I was afraid, and basically told, no, don't ever be afraid. Own up to your mistakes right away or as soon as you can, because that's the only way you can solve them. Anything else?
Great advice. I've never had a boss that I've reported to. They like to find out from you first. They don't want to hear something is messed up from somebody else. If you get to them first, it's kind of like when you're telling on your sibling. Whoever gets to the parent first is in better shape and off of the defense. So if you go to your boss and you say, "Hey, I goofed this up and here's my plan to fix it," you're in a much better position than if somebody else comes and says, "Hey, guess what Danielle did?" So that's really good advice.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. Gosh, no, you should see when I do this in person, how I just badger everybody to ask a question. So you're kind of lucky I'm not going to do that today, but everybody has a question, I'm sure. But you may not want to, if you have a question, feel free to email me. And we could set up a call, or I could just answer it in an email. I try, as I said, I try to make myself available. If, and I think that one thing I would want to leave you with is, obviously, I've made a big enough point that I'm a finance person. I've been doing this a long time. If you're majoring in something else, I do know people. So I could possibly hand you off to somebody who might be able to help you if you're thinking of marketing, or if you're, probably I can't help you in sciences, so that's probably not going to work. But, you know, if you're in business to some extent, or English, I mean, I work now for a media company, and they're always looking for journalists, people who write. So, you know, again, don't think I don't want to pigeonhole myself and say, hey, I'm only can help somebody who wants to go into finance. That's not true. I mean, that's where I'm best situated for. But if you want to go into marketing, if there's other areas that you might be interested in, again, doesn't hurt to ask. And again, as I said, reaching out to the Alumni Association, asking if there's somebody specifically in that field who they may be able to hook you up with would be a smart move too.
I have a quick, not really a question, but before you leave, would you be able to leave us with like one of your quotes, like a quote that you live by?
A quote that I live by?
Yeah.
I don't know if I live by any specific quote, you know, because, you know, as I said again at the start is, you know, so I'm trying to think, is there a quote I live by? There's not. I'd have to think about it. You've caught me and I can't, I'm sure there is something I could think about, but, you know, my life has been lived really broadly and not defined. And one of the things, you know, and that just leads me to think of another thing, is that one thing students always say is they come out of school looking for a career. Like, what do I want to do the rest of my life? And what I caution them, because I've seen it year after year after year, is your first job out of college is probably just a job. Don't think that's your career. Don't not take something because it's not what you really want to do, unless you think what you really want to do is nothing to do with that job. I mean, that's okay. You know, like I said, don't sell if you don't want to sell. But a job is a job. And that's the first thing usually you get out of college. The career comes afterwards. Now, again, if you were an accountant, an accounting major, the odds are your first job is going to be your career. I mean, you know, let's
Yeah, I'm an accounting major.
right. I mean, so, you know, that's, you know, good for you. If it's a vocation, something you want to do, you'll do it. And that's great. And there's a number of, you know, majors in Oneonta that really provide you with careers. For most people, they're going to come out and get a job. And, you know, you build off, you learn what you like to do, what you don't like to do. You know, I've spoken to a few people, you know, who graduated last year who think they're ready to move on. The job is not what they wanted, or COVID changed it because they work from home and now they realize certain things they really didn't like about the job have become really much, you know, bigger in their daily life. So, gosh, I wish I could answer that in terms of my quote. Sorry. If I think of it, I'll let you know. But no, I try to treat people with respect. And you know, treat people how I want to be treated. I've told my kids that. And so I think maybe going back to the presentation, just, you know, I'm no better than anybody else and no one's better than me is kind of maybe sums up of how I feel about things. You know, I don't think I'm better than anybody. You know I am, but I don't tell them that. But, you know, but it's, you know, again, as I said, I've got some, you know, and Daniel knows some of my college roommates and my friends. They've done pretty well. They come up to Oneonta often, talk to students. They've really succeeded. And I think they've always carried themselves in a very humble, respectful way. They don't, you know, you wouldn't know how successful they are by their demeanor and how they are as people. And that's what I think I always want to be, is I don't want people to look at me in any way. And I don't want to ever look down on anybody in any way and just think they're not as good as me. Everybody deserves a break. You know, people should be treated with respect. It's the least we can all do. So I don't know if there's a quote near somewhere, but, you know.
Thank you.
And good luck with accounting.
Thank you.
Hi, Seth. It's Charlene. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah.
Usually we're in person.
Yep.
But, I want to make sure the students know that you're very genuine in your offer to help them. And you give us so much in the presentation that it's going to take a while for that to resonate with them. But I want to make sure that all the students on the call know that Seth is very, very genuine in his offer to follow up. He and I have spoken over email numerous times, and sometimes he'll send me a quote out of the New York Times or just something, an article. So feel free, Even you, Carmel, as an accounting major, feel free to follow back up with him because he has a lot of sage advice. And once this call resonates with you, take advantage of his very generous offer. And thank you, Seth, for talking to our students.
Yeah, thanks, Charlene. And it's interesting you say that because, as I said, I had a student reach out to me. I mean, he's a senior now, he's graduating in May, and I saw him last year, so it's a year ago in backpacks. And, you know, personally, I don't particularly like people come back a year later. You know, I like them to have some relationship, so at least, you know, we talk in between, but it was okay. So we were talking about things, and I'm helping him on his resume right now. And I really walked him off a cliff because he says, I don't have a job yet. And I said, it's November and we have a pandemic. I mean, you know, no offense, who's hiring? So, you know, relax, enjoy, finish your school year, enjoy the holiday. And when we get to January, February, then you're ready to roll, you know, and start looking. And hopefully by then we're back on track and there's some normalcy returning. But I asked him, I said, you know, I'm going to be doing a Zoom backpacks on Friday, which I said tomorrow. And because I spoke to him yesterday and said, what do you remember? Was anything I said or did or anything? And he started naming some of the things we talked about. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. A year later, he at least something stuck with him. So, you know, again, if after this call, I never see you again, good luck. If you reach out, you know, Charlene said, I try to be generous with my time. I was there once and, you know, I try to help you as best I can, give you, you know, any kind of advice. Some people don't like my advice. You know, some students who graduated don't appreciate the honesty. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll be more than willing to be blunt if I have to. But as I said, if you email me more times than none, I will get back to you relatively quickly. You know, I won't leave you hanging. Oh, one thing, because it was, I'm trying to think if it was in Professor Sirigar's class when I was up there a couple of years ago. A student asked me when they were looking for a job, they sent an email and they didn't hear anything back. And they asked me, when's the proper time to get back in touch with an employer or potential employer about, you know, responding. And because they didn't want to just, you know, badger them, and which would hurt their chances. And the answer, it's good, you know, and I only say because using me as a reference, if you come back to ask me questions and, you know, I'm fine with it. But the point is that if you reach out to other alumni, well, let's just say the Alumni Association says, hey, John Smith is in marketing and he could probably speak with you about some opportunities, and you email him, don't hear from him, don't wait a month to get back to him. I mean, clearly not. I mean, if you already know this is somebody who's willing to hear from you, you know, or if you sent a resume to John Smith and you don't know him, but somebody said, you know, he's, you know, in charge of marketing, a few days is all you need to do to get back in touch with somebody. I mean, maybe they missed the email, maybe it didn't go through. Technology is not 100% perfect. So, you know, feel free to reach out again. Don't let a long period of time go by because then it looks like you maybe weren't interested. Maybe they were testing you. How long were you going to wait? No reason to send an email to somebody at 9 o'clock and then hit them up again at 11. But, you know, if you send something on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd say by Wednesday, Thursday, you should feel free to get back in touch. And if somebody comes back to you and says, don't badger me, then they weren't looking for you anyway. I mean, come on, they can throw it and make it sound like you're the problem, but they're just not looking to answer you. And so you should feel free. You're not going to be badgering. Only on to alumni, if you reach out, you're not going to be badgering. So, but if it's, you know, on a job where you sent the resume out, you don't hear back, it was HR who maybe called because they were interested and you didn't hear back, feel free to reach out after a few days. I think I've taken up enough of your time for Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to all of the students who participated. We've had quite a few repeat attenders, so I appreciate that. We will continue this program into the spring, so stay tuned for those messages coming from the School of Economics and Business. And once again, I want to thank you, Seth, for taking time out on your Friday to share your words of wisdom. And to the students, I will echo what he and Dr. Foley-Deno has said, and that is that he's always willing to really help. And I know he's probably looked at hundreds of students' resumes, so take him up on that. He's a great connection to have.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. And everybody have a happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Be safe. And maybe our paths will meet somewhere down the road.
Great. Same to you, Seth. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.